we have a lot of question marks here, and that makes me not want to pick a side or a total. But we were just talking about DK Metcalf. I think this is the way to go. Because from a prop standpoint, the thing that sticks out like a sore thumb on the matchup is the fact that the Eagles secondary has been very generous to opposing wide receivers. In fact, they're one of the leakiest secondaries, and now they have a new defensive coordinator in Matt Patricia. So if you look at the grid, the Eagles giving up the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I think DK Metcalf is due for a big day. If you look at some of his game logs, he's had some off games. You've got to remember last game he got ejected before he could finish the game. And also the two games that stick out are the games against the Niners, who are probably the best defense in the NFL. Of course, he's not going to have big days against them. But the last time DK Metcalf squared off with the Eagles secondary, he went for $177. So I'm going to take over on his receiving prop of 61.5 over at BetMGM. The only sabotage factor is sometimes when it comes to the Seahawks, you have to choose between DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Because obviously, either one of those guys could have a massive day. But I do feel like with this Eagles secondary, you have to pick on them, at least in some way. So I'll go with DK Metcalf.
Oh, I like that. I have one prop, and I don't know if I like it or not. This is just a game, I'll be honest with you. Yes, it's Monday Night Football, and yes, you want some action on the game. I get that. But at least for me personally, this is one of those games where there's just too many unknowns for me to bet this game with confidence. I will say this, something that I like, and it's a bit of a roll of the dice here, but I kind of like it. Kenneth Gainwell, over 8.5 receiving yards. Here's the thing. He didn't have a single target last week against the Cowboys, and because of that, I think there's some value here. Before that, he had hit it in 3 of his last 5 games, but Seattle allows the 10th most receiving yards to running backs in all of the NFL. And if you're talking about maybe Jalen Hurts not playing, you're going to want to dump it off to your running back, right? We see this all the time with backup quarterbacks, maybe a quarterback who isn't feeling well. You've got a Seattle defense that tends to do this on a regular basis, so all you really need is one catch and one decent run, and you hit this. So also, if you're talking about the Eagles and how their offense has performed over the past few weeks, early in the season, it was DeAndre Swift getting the most targets out of the backfield. That is switched to Kenneth Gainwell over the past few weeks. So I would go over 8.5 receiving yards. Not my favorite play, but something does stand out to me.
It makes me nervous playing totals in college football that are like in the 50s. Especially 51.5. Like, I think I would still shade towards the under because of the weather and because of all the opt-outs. I believe Western Kentucky is going to be using their third string quarterback here. And then Old Dominion over the course of the season has not been a prolific offense. So, Jenks, what was your first read on this game? Was it the under or was it a side or was it an over?
I will be playing the under. I'm going to play it up to its original total and lay the juice. I need a dub, guys. Total of 54. Now it's down to 51.5, and we keep seeing action on the under, and it's because of the reasons you talked about. Not only is Western Kentucky playing without its starting quarterback, they're also playing without 3 of their starting offensive linemen. Quantavius Leslie, Vincent Murphy, Wes Dorsey, and then conversely, the Monarchs haven't been hit hard on the line, but they gave up 61 sacks this season. That leads college football. So if you think college football, and I certainly do, if you think games are won in the trenches, then you're talking about 2 teams who are going to be porous on each offensive line. What does that mean? These offenses aren't going to do much, and then you add rain to the forecast. I'm on the under. It's going to be my bet of the day.
Yeah, I like that. But I have seen the chaos that's been unfolding in some of these bowl games, and it makes me a little nervous. I remember I was at the gym, and who was Ohio playing? Was it Georgia Southern? All of the factors really pointed in Georgia Southern's direction. And I look up at the score, and I think it was like 21-3. I'm like, what's going on? Doesn't Ohio not even have their starting quarterback? So I'm not going to lie. I don't go into this game with a ton of confidence. When you don't really know the level of play that's coming from some of these backups, it's not something that would be like a big bet for me. I think this is one of those games where you just play for fun. If I had to pick a side, it would be the under. But it's not something that I feel like it's not going to be a 5-star pick for me.
You just got to be smarter with the football at this time of year. You want to be trending in the right direction and playing your best football of the season, and Jacksonville's just kind of sitting there, and I think you nailed it, which is, are the Jags serious contenders? Kind of, on paper, because it looks like they can beat virtually anyone, and they do have a franchise quarterback, and they have weapons, and they have a good head coach. But until we see it, all they are is, it's like Bill Parcells said back in the day, you are what your record says you are. And the Jaguars are a good team, but they are not a great team. And now we're getting to the point of the season where, look, you don't have a whole lot of time to sort of fix these glaring errors and become so much better. You can, but you got to do it right now. You don't want to go into the postseason limping.
No, of course not. I'm looking at their schedule, and I'm trying to justify this statement. And I'm not sure if the Jags can compete with the cream of the crop, because you look at that game, this was back in September, maybe not a good example. Chiefs beat them 17-9. They got absolutely smoked by the 49ers, which most teams do. But I think their only really solid win this year, and all wins are solid. I should, quantify my statement there. But looking at that game against the Texans, in which the Texans actually had CJ Stroud, because that's the other thing about the AFC South. Now the Jags look like they have a clean pathway because the Texans don't have CJ Stroud, although the Texans did win over the weekend against my Titans. So I'm not sure. I always want to believe in the Jags because there's been years past where they have played the Chiefs closely. And, sometimes their defense over the past decade has really got them, into some big games, notably those years that they had Blake Bortles at the helm. But still, I don't know. I feel like the Jags are one of those teams that, I don't know, they're just meh.
So, Jenks, who is your Monday MVP?
Who do you think it's going to be, Double D? I cannot believe the number of text messages I got this weekend regarding volleyball, and I'm not even kidding. I got 2 over the past few days. Those Wisconsin girls look good. Wisconsin's going to have to say something about that Texas semifinal match. Oh, is that right? Because they didn't. I watched these ladies last year win the national title, and they were disrespected by being given a number 2 seed this year just because they started the season 5-3. How dare you punish the defending national champions? They went into Florida, and by the way, I'm so glad that this final is not in Omaha anymore because it was unfair. Nebraska has a great team every year, but last night they got swept. Just like last year, Texas pulled off the sweep. First time in college volleyball history, a women's volleyball team has swept the final in consecutive years. The pride of Katy, Texas, Madison Skinner, Longhorns, back-to-back, MVP. They deserve it, and now all of a sudden, my phone is real quiet. Real quiet. I don't hear anybody talking any volleyball smack to me, but you should know better. Longhorns, Maddie Skinner, way to get it done.
How many people are you texting about women's volleyball? I did not know this about
People come out of nowhere. I swear to God.
All right, so I'm going to go off the menu, and I'm going to go for a guy that Jenks absolutely loves, and that's Baker Mayfield, the pride of Oklahoma. How did we not mention this fact? Baker Mayfield over the weekend becomes the first visiting quarterback to have a perfect passer rating playing at Lambeau Field. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and now his Bucks are in first place in the NFC South. Do we not need to at least mention old Baker doing big things for the Bucks? Baker and the Bucks. Yeah, it's going to go to Baker Mayfield for me.